Welcome back to the program. In case you're just joining us, it's time for our conversation. Let's take a look at the report by Oxfam that was released on Monday. Johnson Chukwu is joining me, the Chief Executive Officer at Cowry Assets Management. Mr. Chukwu, welcome again to the program. Let's get started. So many things to talk about, and we have just a few minutes to do that. So let's hit the nail on the head very quickly. You are a capitalist. Has capitalism failed? The world, 2,153 billionaires have as much money as 4.6 billion people. If we are to begin to sit on $100 bill, the richest man will be sitting in outer space. We won't be seeing him. So has capitalism failed the world?
No, I don't think capitalism has failed the world. What I said that capitalism has built the world. Nnaji, if you cast your mind back to the 50s and the 60s, or what we read, and even up to the 80s, we had two broad economic divides. We had a communist economist and we had a capitalist economist. Today, all communist economies have collapsed. Even China, that pretends to be a communist economy, is no longer a communist economy. So the key thing is the management of economic resources in the hands of individuals and corporates have actually built the world. What is missing, which is what Oxfam is emphasizing, at least, the government needs to moderate the level of greed, because in as much as you want to encourage private sector operators to maximize or optimize their returns, that government must also find ways to ensure that the weaklings in the society are not left at their own devices, that somehow the society can accommodate those who are weak and lift them up to some level of minimum standard. Which is why if you go to Europe, for instance, most European economies have social safety nets that ensure that people have minimum standard of living, in as much as they may not be among the richest in the world. So capitalism has not failed. Capitalism is creating the wealth, but what is lacking is that the distribution of the wealth, which is the role of government.
Okay, so let me ask this other question then. If capitalism hasn't failed, can capitalism be more responsible by improving the state of the world?
Yes, I mean, we are seeing instances where the richest in the world are handing out a lot of their wealth. I mean, we've seen interventions that someone like Bill Gates is doing in Africa in trying to eradicate some of the easily communicable diseases. These are the roles of government. What is missing is that we must have strong governments that have the capacity to moderate the greed where there is any greed factor, and also that's efficient in income distribution. The basic thing is that for somebody to live comfortably, you need some basic necessities of life. You need stable power supply, you need to have access to water, you need to have access to good health care, and again, you need quality education. One of the reasons that also I'm emphasizing that the caregiver, the children and the women do not have the resources and time to go and get formal education, and therefore they are not able to live themselves above poverty level. So that's part of the role of government. The government has a duty to ensure that education is available and possibly free at certain levels, and that the quality of education is of the highest level, so that people are lifted out of poverty. And like Mandela said, education is the only system, only method that you can bring the child of a poor farmer in the rural area to become a president of a country. But where societies do not have systems to ensure that everybody has access to education, then that society is actually driving for higher level of inequality.
Okay. Since you've come down to women and children, you know, they did say that 22 richest men in the world have as much wealth as the 326 million African women, which I am part of. You know, yesterday on the program, my guest did say that capitalism is not bad. It's not something that we should discourage, you know. But what do you think can be done to help women come up, to even it up? Also, you know, to get children or to make children have education. If we're bringing it home to Nigeria, about 13.2 million children are out of school. In Jigawa State, for example, over 90%, the last data about 90% of women in Jigawa State are illiterate. If you're looking at, because there is a correlation between inequality and poverty, which will come to a bit, the poorest states in Nigeria, about 7 or 8 of them are in the northern part of the country. Sokoto State is there, Jigawa, Kebbi, Adamawa, Katsina, and all of that, talking about poorest states in the country. So how do we begin to even it up, especially for women and for children?
Okay, Max, I'm going to use you as a person as a classical example. You anchor one of the best economic programs in the country. You are a woman. You are obviously among the top 10 richest Nigerians if you look at income distribution of the country. So you don't belong to that category. But you could have been born in your village. Wait, now we're going somewhere.
Okay.
If when you were born, you did not have formal education, maybe you would have had like 10 children. All the 10 children may be married to a very poor man as well. All the 10 children will not have formal education. So what you will be doing is you will be extending poverty around. So what is the problem? The core problem is that a lot of women in some parts of the country are not given the opportunity to have formal education. The formal education will develop their mind, will develop their skill level, will allow them earn higher level of income, will allow them make judgments that are self-preserving, and then will also allow them bring up children who are exposed to higher quality of education and could be trained to compete globally. So what we need to do as a country, I mean, we have to bring it down to Nigeria, is we need to break some of those cultural and religious barriers that are keeping our people away from realizing their full human potential. And there's actually nothing in this cultural or religious background inhibitions or constraints that other countries have not broken, irrespective of your religious leaning, be you a Christian or a Muslim. If you go to a country like Egypt is predominantly is a Muslim country, but go and look at the quality of education, the level of exposure of all the sexes. If you're a Christian, you go to a country like UK or US, these are predominantly Christian countries, and you see almost a parity between the women and men in terms of education and attainment. So we need to, as a people, break whatever cultural barrier that is keeping away women. Because the truth is, like they say, if you train a woman, you are training a household. The women have more enduring capacity to generate income. They have, because they are caregivers, they also have a lot more influence in the level of social education attainment of their children. But if you keep away women and only make them breeders of children, then what you are doing is you are sustaining poverty. And we need to break that as a country. There's actually nothing to celebrate to say we have a 200 million population, and when more than half of that population are living in abject poverty and are not contributing significantly to economic activities. Sometimes when I hear the government say like, our tax rate, tax to GDP is less than 5%, I laugh. Tax to GDP is less than 5% because more than 50% of your people are not earning income and therefore are not paying taxes. So until you have a system, a society where majority of Nigerians are able to find gainful employment or able to deploy their competencies to earn income, you are not likely going to have an equitable society in terms of income distribution.
Now, what is making Nigeria such an unequal country? Why aren't we having that equitable distribution of wealth? I don't want to say equal because all fingers are not equal. Both of us are not equal. And can we actually even create an equal society in Nigeria? So what's making Nigeria so unequal? What are the things happening right now that is deepening inequality in the country?
The core of it is lack of education to a lot of people. One is lack of education. Two is absence of quality education at the rural areas. Nancy, let me give you a classical example. There's a secondary school in my village. We're just trying to provide computers to that secondary school. The secondary school sits for national examinations like WAEC and JAM, NECO, and today you need computers to sit for JAM. Then you have somebody who has gone through 11 years of formal education, He has done 12 years of formal education, 6 years in primary school, 6 years in secondary school. He or she has never used computer. And then you ask the person to sit for JAM, and you give the person a laptop on the exam day. What do you think will happen? There is no chance that that person will pass that exam. So if the person cannot pass JAM, the person will not go to university. And the person will not have an opportunity of working in an environment that is doing the job that's available to only graduates. So you have already classified that person into a particular income category. Then look at those who don't have formal education whatsoever. They are highly limited in the economic opportunity they can exploit in today's world. We are talking of a world where we are talking of fourth industrial revolution that is driven by technology, that is driven by artificial intelligence. And then you are talking to somebody who has no formal education whatsoever. So the first thing we need to address is the quality of education and the availability of education to everybody in terms of coverage. The second aspect is in terms of infrastructure supply. When you provide infrastructure to the rural area, for instance, they are able to extract more value in selling their products or in providing their services to companies and to businesses. So that way their income level improves, and if their income level is improved, they are in better position to train their children or send their children to better schools. The absence of infrastructure in rural areas is another constraint that is keeping people extremely poor. So if you address the issue of quality education and coverage in terms of availability, ensure that we eliminate the 13.5 million or thereabouts of school-age children that are not in school by providing quality education to them, and then you provide infrastructure facilities to rural areas, you are likely going to reduce the incidence of poverty and reduce the level of inequality in terms of income distribution.
Now, where does the misappropriation and misapplication of scarce resources come into all of this? Because government provides that. Where does government get the money? We've spoken so much about the cost of governance in Nigeria. When I read the report of Oxfam, I think was it last year or so, on Nigeria, they did say the cost of governance is high. You see highly placed government officials, politicians, earning so much, and minimum wage, for example, is 30,000 naira. States are still struggling to have it. You also see an overlap or a blending of political office holders with those in the economic space. That also deepens inequality. So where do you actually draw the line? I hope you understand what I'm saying, Mr. Chukwu. Misappropriation or misapplication of the scarce resources too, when they are being applied, they are misapplied, and just a few people that perhaps have the connection, the network between politics and economy, take all of that.
Okay, let me take it from the two words you use, misappropriation. Misappropriation means that somebody in public service takes what belongs to the Commonwealth and appropriate it to him or herself or to his friends. That's misappropriation. Misapplication is where resources are applied wrongly, and both of them have negative economic impact and social impact on the society. But let's look at the case of misapplication, which is one of the banes of the current challenge, one of the challenges we have in the country. It then means that those in public service or the bureaucracy are not able to identify what is critical to the society. And I want to give you a few examples. I know of a state that is building a flyover and has been building that flyover for the past 5 years or thereabouts on a highway, and then has failed to build some of the arterial corridors. For anybody who has a sense of economics, we know that kind of a misapplication of economic resource. Because when you build that flyover, where will it flush to? The roads that it flushes to have not been built. So you have what we call white elephant project, a massive infrastructure that has no minimal economic value. That's the case of misapplication. Misappropriation is at the realm of corruption, where people share our commonwealth, either to their families or to their friends, or property themselves. And that's where the issue of what values the society have. How do we enforce the values? How do we show our angst against those who use our resources for their personal good? Do we have a legal framework or a cultural framework that abhors and punishes misappropriation of economic resources? And unfortunately, because it has taken so long over the history of this country, people are beginning to tolerate misappropriation. I mean, I had a meeting with a very senior ranking politician in the country, one of the most respected politicians in the country, and he was sharing with me yesterday that, look, he was sharing the experience of somebody who went to the Federal House of Representatives and came back this December and bought several, what do you call it, keke napep and distributor empowerment, bought several bikes and bought about, I think he said 10 Sienna. So the question is, what is the income of a House of Rep member that a first timer could come back just after like 5 months and is distributing Sienna cars and is distributing tricycles and motorcycles, and the society is hailing him and probably giving him titles. So the question we should have asked, where did you get this money? Somebody has stolen your money and is giving you a handout from your money. And people are hailing them and calling them Igwe or whatever you call them. So we need to also, as a people, learn to recognize that somebody has stolen our property and we cannot be celebrating that person. We should be holding that person accountable for that. So we need to define our cultural orientation.
Now, you talked about especially corruption, because even Oxfam has identified that in the case of Nigeria. In the reports too that I read, not this one, not this current one, I think either last year or 2 years ago, they did say about $20 trillion has been siphoned from the country by corrupt officials from, I think, 1960 to 2005, if I'm not mistaken. $20 trillion of Nigerian money, raw cash. You can imagine what that will do to the country. You see a lot of schools, dilapidated health facilities. In fact, I heard something last week that someone died because there was no cannula in the hospital. You go to some public hospitals, there are no gloves. You enter some public hospitals, the lab technicians, they want to take your blood. They are taking it with their bare hands, and I'll ask, where's the glove? You know, it's really sad and very upsetting for a country such as this. But if we're moving ahead, in your own opinion, what do you think is plaguing the country? Is it poverty or inequality?
Our greatest challenge is poor leadership. Leadership will redefine the cultural value. Leadership will ensure that you have a progressive tax system. Leadership will ensure that you have efficient resource allocation. Leadership will ensure that you have education is available to every child of school age in the country, and enforce it, not just, I mean, I have a cousin who is married to a Polish woman. When they relocated to the country in the late 90s, and their child became of school age, the Polish government was looking for them and had to track them to Nigeria and said, where is this child? And we need to see a proof that because it's a Polish child that she is in school. We need to enforce compulsory education. We have it as a policy, but it's not being enforced. What is the government doing with children who are of school age, who are roaming the streets, and who is following the children to track their parents and ensure that they are punished? So if you have strong leadership, leadership will address most of the problems we have, including the issue of corruption. Okay. Leadership that leads by example and enforces the laws, irrespective of whose ox is God, will reduce the level of corruption.
Okay, Mr. Chukwu, let me ask that question again. I want to get your view. What do you think is plaguing Nigeria the more out of these two evils, poverty or inequality? Just one of them, so that I'll go ahead, because we have less than 5 minutes.
Well, I think if we have those are the two options, then it's poverty.
Okay, then it's poverty. You talked about tax system, because in the country, apart from when this Finance Act came into being, we've had such a regressive tax system. Do you think that with the Finance Act now assigned by Mr. President, may try as much as possible to put us on the path of progressive taxation? Because Oxfam said in the report that if you are able to tax the billionaires about a wealth tax of about 0.5% higher, that it will give 117 million people jobs around the world. So do you think we're on the path of progressive taxation in Nigeria?
Yes, the Finance Act will go some extent to address the issue of progress tax. But the most important weakness we have in the tax system is that the government or the tax authorities are not yet able to bring in private sector businesses into the tax net. Most business operators do not pay tax, and that's a great challenge we have. So you have people who are doing business who are actually billionaires. Some of them are billionaires. They pay little or no tax. And until we find a mechanism to bring them into the tax net, we will not address the issue of unfair taxation, where only those who are unpayee are the people you are sure that they are paying appropriate taxes.
So what do you think the government should do now as a matter of urgency to rein in this challenge of poverty and inequality on one hand? If you're talking about inequality, minimum wage comes to mind, because earning opportunities for people also have to improve. What do you also think that, apart from government, the billionaires in Nigeria, can they do more than they're doing right now? Oxfam also noted in their former report that the richest man in Nigeria, who definitely is Dangote, the richest man in Africa, if he's spending 1 million naira a day, it will take him 42 years to finish spending his current wealth. And the last time I checked, Dangote was, I think, 136 on the Forbes list, 88th on the ranking on Bloomberg's Billionaires Index. So what do you think that people like Dangote and the other billionaires around the world can do even more than they're doing right now? So government